Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to get started today. Okay. Good afternoon, welcome, and thank you for attending today's webinar as a part of Chagrin River Watershed Partners Winter Webinar Series for the 2023 to 2024 season. My name is Chris. I'm an AmeriCorps service member serving as the Watershed Steward at Chagrin River Watershed Partners. This is the fourth webinar as a part of our series where CRWP partners with environmental professionals to deliver educational presentations to other interested professionals and members of the public. We have been and will continue to promote this series through our e-newsletter, social media pages, and our website. If you're interested in learning more about this series, feel free to check out our website and sign up for more webinars that we have scheduled for the next 2 months. If you have questions, feel free to type any as we go in the chat box on your screen, and we can cover them at the end of the presentation during the Q&A session. Just to let you know, today's presentation is being recorded and will eventually be uploaded to our YouTube page. In my follow-up email, I will also include a link to this recording so you can review it at any time. In addition, I will also include a survey that helps Chagrin River Watershed Partners prepare high-quality webinars for the public and environmental field at large. A PDF file of today's presentation should be available on the GoToWebinar page and will be uploaded to our website in the coming days. For today's webinar, we are with Kelly Coffman from the Cleveland Metroparks and Linda Sternheimer from the Port of Cleveland, who will present on the Cleveland Harbor Eastern Embayment Resilience Strategy, or CHEERS, and its implications for equitable park access, climate resiliency, and habitat restoration in the greater Cleveland area. The CHEERS project will be implemented in phases over the next 20 years using beneficial dredge material from the mouth of the Cuyahoga River to reinforce Cleveland's east side shoreline and create new space for natural habitats and public parks. Kelly and Linda will focus on their organization's roles in the project and how the partner collaborative created this vision for Cleveland shoreline. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kelly and Linda, and welcome.
Great, thank you so much for having us. Chris, that was a great intro. We're going to have some discussion at the end, and I wondered, is there a good way that people can kind of drop questions in the chat, or what's the best way for us to make sure we're having a good discussion?
Yeah, sure. So in the GoToWebinar bar that's on your screen, there is a chat box that people can put questions in, and there's also a questions bar. Either one works, but yeah, us three can read them, and at the end of the session, we can just read the questions that attendees have written, and then we can just discuss the topic from there.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'm going to just kick things off, and I'm Kelly Coffman from Cleveland Metroparks, and my colleague Linda.
I'm Linda Sternheimer from the Port of Cleveland. Welcome, everyone.
Yes, and so today we're going to just do an overall introduction to the CHEERS project, talk about the process for creating the vision, talk about the project benefits, and then share the really exciting part about how we get from a vision to actually implementing the project. And then we'd love to address any questions or hear any comments that you folks in the audience might have for us. So, just jumping right in, what is CHEERS? And it's, again, it's really a strategy looking at building resilience on Cleveland's east side lakefront. And when we talk about resilience, we're really focusing on benefits that deliver in both terms of the environment, the economy, and the community. As far as the study area, this map really shows kind of Cleveland's overall waterfront. The blue dashed line is the area studied in the waterfront district plan, which took place about 20 years ago. And we've seen different improvements that have occurred as a result of that. CHEERS really takes a deeper look at about 2 miles of lakefront, ranging from about Burke Lakefront Airport over to the Cleveland Lakefront Nature Preserve. This is an image of that 2004 plan, which really had a bold vision for utilizing the lakefront as an asset. Excuse me. And kind of moving from that, the focus for the Cheers area. Again, this is just kind of a different vantage point, but beginning at Burke Lakefront Airport here, which is on the east, the west edge of the project area, and then Cleveland Lakefront Nature Preserve on the east. And this slide also really portrays several other things. It shows how the existing shoreline is very engineered. It's in a lot of places kind of a sheer steel breakwater with several feet of drop till the actual water level. It shows that there is some vacancy kind of in the adjacent neighborhood. And then a key point that we'll talk about later, the federal breakwater is this gray line. And that's what protects the shoreline in a lot of Cleveland, you know, the central portion of the city from the wave energy of Lake Erie. And so that's why we tend to see in this area, if folks are familiar with the waves kind of cresting over I-90 in a storm, or, you know, really seeing a lot of wave action along this portion of the shore. And then one of the other really important components of Cheers that we like to share with everyone is that the project is very much a partnership, and so we're really grateful to have the involvement of 2 state agencies with the Ohio Department of Transportation and the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, the Port and Cleveland Metroparks, both being regional agencies, and the City of Cleveland and support from Cleveland City Council, and then Black Environmental Leaders, which is a statewide nonprofit. So kind of moving into, you know, just that origin of how did Cheers come to be? How did the partners get together? And this slide really portrays the goals of each agency. And there's a lot of overlap, but you see that they were all focused on how to improve that lakefront so that it delivers more for the community. And that we wanted this process to be very much a community-driven process so that we were not just kind of sharing our vision of what the lakefront could be, but hearing from the community about what they wanted to see. And so with that, the community focused vision, let's see, I think, Linda, are you able to share some of this input? We can share it together.
Yeah, I'll have you advance the slides, but
sure.
Really, Kelly talked about how this Cheers is a partnership between agencies, but at the center of it all is the public. And so we've done extensive public engagement, but we're just starting. We plan to do engagement throughout the process. What you see here is we tend to do this in the cold weather, but last February we had public meetings, and you can advance the slide, really getting people together, hearing about what they want to do when they visit the lakefront, what they do now. And we found the most interaction was around these big maps that we laid out on the table. And we really wanted to hear from people, you know, what memories do you have at the lakefront? What do you do there now? And what would you like to do in the future? So these were in February. We took that feedback and went back and looked at how to reshape and right-size the project. One thing that we take very seriously and are looking at, Kelly mentioned that the entire shoreline now is a hardened edge. So we look back at history, and if you look back, the blue line is the original shoreline before there was any, as far as we know, any human intervention. And you can really see how it's been built out since then. At that time, there was Gordon Park was one piece, that's the green highlighted area. And when the highway was built, it really bisected that park and cut off community from the lakefront. So that's really where we're looking at the history of the site, how people was their lakefront with easy access has been completely cut off from being able to access it. So we wanted to gather those stories, and these are just a few pull-out quotes, but looking at how we right that inequity that's been occurring for many decades now.
Sorry,
think we
Linda,
have,
I'm having a little glitch with advancing my slides. I'm not
I
sure
was gonna say,
why.
I think it's away.
Let's see. Bear with us here a sec. That is really interesting.
Yep, so thanks in advance. So looking at what I said, those 3 questions, what do you do at the lake now? What do you want to do? And then what are you excited about for the future? And, you know, we categorized these many things that we heard from the public. And what I think we're all in alignment is that we don't have to wait to improve the access and for people to use the lakefront. So some of the early ideas of, like, you know, what can we improve upon now, and then building out as we build out Cheers. So you can see could you go back one slide, Kelly? I just want to point out that here we have the original vision plan that shows like a kidney bean island. And after taking that feedback in February and doing more of the studies, in water studies, and like I said, right sizing the project, we advanced the project, and I can advance the slide. And you can see the outline of the new form in the lake that is proposed to be Cheers. So I just wanted to point out that difference. And so anyway, going back to the community feedback, this is just identifying back in, not just at the lakefront, but also back in the community along that Gordon Park, that edge, you know, what people are really connected to. And again, just trying to reinforce those memories and implement them as we plan to move forward. So you might be interested in why the port is so involved in this. I think Kelly mentioned the port and Metroparks are co-leading Cheers, but the dredge component of Cheers, I don't know if you're stuck again, Kelly, or you could advance it. Oh, sorry, I'm off my slides here. Anyway, going back to why the port's involved, and we'll talk more about dredge management, but the one thing that is so fantastic about Cheers is that it hits so many different missions for different organizations. And the consultants that we hired really looked at the environmental benefits and tried to put, using I think it's the Army Corps' objectives, and try to incorporate that in today's dollars. And the analysis found that by quantifying those 13 ecosystem benefits, it would offer, you know, roughly $1.5 million in services annually in today's dollars. So this just goes into a little more detail into those 4 relevant typologies for Cheers: the open, the urban green open space, the riparian forest, and the inland wetland, and then list out those values. And we could provide more information on this, that the work that our consultants did for you. So talking about why the port is involved and why this is so important to the mission of my organization is that the economic benefits of having the maritime industry in Northeast Ohio translates to over 22,000 jobs and $4.7 billion economic impact to the region annually. We move almost 13.5 million tons of cargo, and you know, we have our docks on Lake Erie, but some of this includes the Cuyahoga River, and that is a federally navigable channel, so it must remain at a certain depth so that ships can move up to the steel mill and other industry along the river. And to keep that depth, it is imperative that the river remain dredged, and we need a place to put that material. Next slide. So as I mentioned, protecting the Cuyahoga River is essential to the port's mission. What you have here is an image of the mouth of the lake in the upper left-hand corner, and then the Cuyahoga River. And what is kind of shaded is Irishtown Bend. That is a hillside adjacent to Ohio City that has been at risk of catastrophically failing, and the landslide would block shipping. So the port has been working for over a decade to figure out why the hillside's unstable, how to fix it, to acquire the land, and to find the funds. And happy to say we are under construction and removing material that has been placed there. The stabilization is roughly an 18 to 24 month project. And in the end, once we have this canvas, then our partners, which are listed in the lower corner, have then planned to put a public park on top of this. Next slide. So why it's important to keep that channel open. I think I love this image because you can see the Buffalo, which is one of the larger ships that moves upriver to the steel mill, basically takes up that whole side of Irishtown Bend. And they make, ships like this make 800, 900 runs a year. That's going both ways to deliver taconite to the steel mill. And should that not occur, then that damages our economy here. So the easy part is dredging. The hard part is figuring out what to do with the material. So annually, 250,000 cubic yards of material are dredged out of the Cuyahoga River, and then another 20,000 from private docks and other berths in the waterways. So what do we do with that material? Right now, Kelly pointed on the slide and referred to it as Burke Lakefront Airport, but she was actually pointing to what we call CDF 12, which CDF is Confined Disposal Facility, and that's where dredge material is placed now. The port operates CDF 12, and we have a pretty interesting operation there where the material's placed there and it goes through a bunch of sluiceways and material settles out, and we, with a private company, figure out what material can be harvested and then reused or used for landside material. So it's amended and worked with other material, and it's been used to cover brownfields and in roadway material. And the issue is that while we've increased the longevity of those CDFs, eventually we are going to run out of capacity. And so Cheers is really where we're looking to the next 20 years to provide capacity. What we do know is the dredge material that we pull out today is it's cleaner than it's been. And this is just a really good map kind of explaining our the waterways and how it moves to the lake. So I mentioned the 20 years of dredge capacity. So just talking about Cheers a little bit more, that's 4 million cubic yards of material. We've broken that up into pieces, which we're calling now the phase, the bay, the launch, the aisle, the habitat loop, and Gordon Hills. And the white outline you see is the breakwater that needs to be built to protect any material placed behind it. And you know, the great part of this is that we can build it in phases. And the idea is that, you know, we today wouldn't need to wait until this is all built out to be able to enjoy it, whether that be for people or, you know, creating habitat, and really looking at how we can segment this. And I think Kelly, you used the term chunk it up, and build it, you know, as we get funding, and bring it online for other uses. So this is an image of a project in Sandusky. That's the causeway by Cedar Point. And I just wanted to show this image so that people could get an idea of what it looks like during the filling process. So this project, they are using sediment to create wetlands, also to protect that causeway. So turn it back over to you, Kelly.
Great. I'm having my little, there we go. So thank you, Linda. That really helps kind of paint the picture of one of the key economic benefits of building Cheers, that it really supports that regional industry. Another area where we provide benefits, and this is actually, I think, one of the things I'm most excited about, is it provides benefits to the adjacent community. This is kind of a census tract map, but that dark blue indicates high socioeconomic, high social vulnerability. And so the community adjacent to Cheers ranks in the 98th percentile nationwide as being super vulnerable. So the benefits that accrue as a result of Cheers will accrue to the population that's kind of in the most need. And then the other part of Cheers that we're excited about, and it's a benefit, but it's also kind of a challenge, is the uplift in area property values. Cheers will provide about $30 million in uplift, which is really exciting. And, you know, we want investment in our neighborhoods, we want increased vitality, but we want to balance that with anti-displacement. We don't want the very people that we're trying to benefit by building the project to be priced out of their homes or to bear negative impacts from that. So a piece that kind of turns out to be a good benefit is all the kind of yellow dots that you see on this map indicate vacancy, and most of those parcels are retained by the city of Cleveland. And so the city and the various community development corporations such as St. Clair Superior and Famicos are really working on a strategy to maintain affordable housing and to utilize these parcels, you know, for greater good, to maintain a diverse and a socioeconomic, you know, balanced community. So that 30 million in uplift does not reflect the yellow parcels. So that allows us to kind of maintain that as a baseline. The way that uplift was calculated, again, as Linda mentioned, we have a great consultant team and they're able to kind of put together these numbers for us. So this just kind of delves into that methodology a little bit, that, you know, defining the study area based on proximity to the park improvements, and then you know, ground truthing that with existing property values and proposed property values. So that kind of concludes our discussion about some of the project benefits, and then we get to really jump into talking about how are we going to build this. And you know, we've been really fortunate as the partnership, and I think that is truly a huge strength of Cheers. But we've been able to bring in just under, or actually just over, I think, $5 million. So we have a total of over $6 million that's funded the initial study and then the engineering to take the project basically to shovel ready for all the in-water components. And that funding has allowed us to hire the consultant team. You see all the logos here on the right with Arup, WRT, KS, and Davy as kind of the lead consultants. And the scope of work, you know, ranges from all those enabling studies, technical studies, and, you know, the coastal engineering, but also the park planning and design. So how all these components can fit together. So as Linda mentioned, you know, we started out with the image that a lot of people are probably familiar with, this, which was kind of the bean kind of island out in the lake. And in looking at the results of the technical studies, we were really able to fine tune the design to better fit and meet these different criteria that are listed here on the slide. And that resulting footprint is here. It's a little more kind of aerodynamic, which actually I think, you know, corresponds to the wave action. We still have kind of this aisle component that'll be probably most similar to kind of the Cleveland Lakefront Nature Preserve, that a very naturalized habitat with just some trails. The view area is off the existing East 55th area and is a little more active with park amenities. And then kind of the high points of having this protected water of both the cove and then also the bay, which kind of faces directly onto the lake. Those are places where you can walk along the shore, where there will be vegetation right along the water. And that really gives us that interface that's missing now with those hardened shorelines. As we mentioned in kind of that Gordon Park illustration, this solid white line is where the perceived natural shoreline dating back to the 1800s. That's where the original shoreline was. So there's already been an amount of fill. This little dotted line is the current shoreline right now. So that kind of helps give a little context. And then we have some renderings that help convey the character of the project. So this really illustrates how you can be kind of surrounded by nature and you'll still be just a few miles from downtown Cleveland and along the lake shore. So as we kind of move toward building that vision, we have some tasks ahead of us, you know, moving through some of the engineering and regulatory approvals. We are really fortunate again to have our consultant team, you know, really figuring out how to build this and how to make that vision come to life. But we are working with the Army Corps of Engineers and other regulators to make sure that these overarching benefits of CHEERS meet the regulatory programs that these agencies enforce. So then we've also mentioned, I think, the 20-year timeline of construction. So right now we're kind of at the very beginning of 2024. So we've begun the permitting process and we're looking at the detailed design, but we see, you know, again, that 20-year construction timeframe. We have applied for several different grant funding sources that'll help fund the actual construction. And then we have a kind of an animation that shows how the project would be constructed. And so this again is kind of that outer breakwater. And we're going to look at moving from the western edge over toward the east. And you can see how different cells and components will be constructed over time. You can see that outer breakwater, you know, really being constructed first to protect that shoreline, which allows us to build softer shores on these interior areas. And then kind of, as I eloquently said, Linda, kind of chunk by chunk, phase by phase, we'll fill these areas with the dredge material and then add the vegetation and add the park amenities. So this really portrays kind of in the space of a minute or so, how the next 20 years could go. So we'll see that kind of build out and kind of complete with that outer aisle component. So let's see. So this illustrates some of the different funding kind of as applied to the plan view, you know, that again, we would start with that westernmost edge. We also have a grant pending Protect, which would construct a portion of that outer breakwater with a function of protecting the transportation infrastructure of Interstate 90. So we covered a lot of material, some technical and some overarching, but Linda and I would just love to kind of address any questions and talk through the project. So thanks for your interest, and we'll just kind of take a look at those questions.
Thank you for that presentation, Kelly and Linda. I definitely learned a lot about this project. It was certainly interesting to hear how the Army Corps of Engineers came up with that ecosystem services number. I don't know if that was like 1.5 billion in services a year. I didn't write it down. I just thought that was fascinating of all the different benefits that this project will have.
I think it was million.
Yeah. Okay.
With an M.
Still pretty good. Yeah. That's cool.
And it was, yeah, it was FEMA. I'm sorry, I gave the Corps.
Oh, FEMA. Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
They work together on these special uses.
Sure, yeah. Um, okay, so questions are starting to come in. The first one is, will wetland habitat be incorporated into the design? Yeah, cool.
Yes, I'm going to try to flip through to get back to the site plan, and we can
Mhm.
kind of speak to that just a little, but
Yeah, sure.
definitely we have some innovative kind of dual layer living breakwater structures here along the outer edge that'll actually have some shelves and wetlands constructed. And
Hmm.
then particularly along this edge and the habitat loop, we'll have a lot of that kind
Yeah,
of immersive habitat features that area is really missing right now. And then incorporated with the parking and the park development, there'll be some green infrastructure features as well to really address stormwater and be a good demonstration project for best practices along Lake Erie.
sure. Um, gotcha. Yeah, I know that like coastal wetlands, they like at least in the Great Lakes system, they're very hard to come by. And just seeing at least some return of that to this area, that's that's really encouraging and it's just nice to see. Um, let's see. So somebody else asked, what comes, so like for the Cleveland shoreline, after Cheers is completed, what comes next after this project? Is there any significant development anywhere else? Something like this?
Um, Man, I love the enthusiasm that you're looking at 20 years and beyond. This is a really good time for us to help co-promote. The Cleveland Parks Coalition put together a waterfront forum where there'll be quick updates on projects kind of across the Cleveland lakefront, including the North Coast project, which is around the Browns Stadium, and the City of Cleveland's park master plan. There'll also be an update on the project Linda mentioned with Irishtown Bend.
Yep.
So that'll really give a good vision of projects in the near and a little bit more distant future.
Okay. Um, someone asks, somebody's asking about the timetable of this project, like why it's taking 20 years. And like that actually ties into a question I had, which is that this dredge material being used from the Cuyahoga, is that being used for any of these other projects like the development near the Brown Stadium?
So we need to keep that ship channel open, and so we look at the Corps looks at planning in 20-year increments, and that's why this is a 20-year plan. One thing that we could look at in the future as we build this out is could we harvest material from the existing confined disposal facilities and move it to if we wanted pieces to come online faster. You know, really we care about that whole capacity of space, where to put material. So that's the 20-year question.
Yeah.
And we don't know yet if some of the other lakefront plans will use dredge material. That definitely is part of the discussion on, you know, creating more nature-based shoreline and how we can use this material to benefit the ecosystem.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely would be like really cool to see like multiple projects like popping up on the shoreline at the same time. But yeah, I mean these sort of like large scale things, they just take time and not just limited to the to the rate of dredge material taken out of the river. Um, ooh, somebody had a question. Has there been any backlash at all to the surrounding communities of the project? Like not wanting it to change, they like it how it is, or not liking certain features of it? And how has the collaborative dealt with any such pushback?
Yeah, I think we have a lot of support, and at least the feedback I've heard is people really want to see this happen. There's some, I guess, um, skepticism about it happening just because there's been so many plans in the past that haven't come to fruition. But I think people are just hungry for more activities to do at, you know, at the lakefront, in the water. They want to touch the water. One of the reasons we looked at phasing from west to east is the fishing pier that is there now around the marina is so crucial, and Kelly's pointing it out on the cursor, but we don't want to cut people off from that, because that's such a vital part of, you know, what they enjoy about having a lake there now. So that's one reason we looked at starting west to east. So how can we enhance that, create more space to do those activities without precluding and completely shutting it down while another piece is in construction?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, certainly. Like, especially over that period of time, it's encouraging to hear that the collaborative is considering how that construction will impact. Like, people want to enjoy their lives now; they want that access now. So that's good to hear. Kelly, did you?
I'll just add to, yeah, that'd be great. I think another benefit just kind of baked into the process has been that we try to be out in the neighborhood, out adjacent to the proposed project, and to really be available for people to voice any concerns or share any ideas, and that the ideas really were developed in collaboration with the community. So I feel kind of validated that there is a level of buy-in, because people have seen this go from kind of nothing, where we had surveys and, you know, walked the sites and listened to people, to the plan that we have today. And it will change, and it will be fine-tuned over the next 20 years as it's implemented. That's one of the kind of, you know, I think that's actually a benefit, that we're not building it all at once, so we can kind of, you know, test out some ideas and fine tune. By the time, you know, it's 2045, we might have a slightly different approach.
Yeah, that's smart. Like, I know that with like any project, any big project, like um, even after you get shovels in the ground, there's always going to be something that comes up, and you just got to be able to work on your feet and yeah, just change it as you go. We're also getting some questions about like more involving the community, like and how they've been a part of like the design consideration. So someone asks, how are the neighborhoods to the south of this project? Let me rephrase that. What elements of connectivity to the neighborhoods to the south are being included? Like, how are they being connected to this project physically?
I'll jump in, and Linda, if you want to add to it too. Again, I think that's the benefit of having this kind of the partnership, that
Yep.
the city of Cleveland and others are kind of taking the lead on those specific connectivity improvements. The initial tiers study showed ideas for East 55th, East 72nd, and several pedestrian bridges. And those are being kind of advanced by other teams. We're kind of focusing for the construction of tiers primarily north of I-90, but looking at how we can embrace those connection points into the park. But there have been multiple discussions and initiatives underway that will be helping improve that neighborhood access.
Good. That's encouraging to hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm seeing like I'm just looking at like the photo you got right here, and like I see some dotted lines crossing I-90, and I think I read online, or no, I read that on that one graphic you sent where like it was the like had people's feedback in different parts of the project image, and I remember noticing that there was attention paid to about like crossing I-90, making it more accessible. So yeah, that sounds good.
And we do know that the existing pedestrian bridge is, you know, structurally good. It's not ideal in the ideal location if we were building it today, but it is one thing that we can start working on now to improve access.
That's a great point. And that kind of correlates too to a kind of a companion project that's going to be kicking off in the next few months, to look at Gordon Park, the portion of existing Gordon Park south of Interstate 90. And neighborhood connectivity is another, you know, big focus of that park planning. That'll be a different process and additional community engagement. But yeah, how can we work with what we have and make enhancements to make it much more, you know, a better user experience and improve better connectivity And I think that's another piece of the engagement for Cheers is we don't want people to wait 20 years. We want them to come out and enjoy the lakefront parks as they are, and that we're able to, you know, work to make improvements along the way as Cheers is being implemented.
Okay, I gotcha. Yeah, so like big picture wise, like more engagement, more access and interconnectivity of these parks, that's a priority. And specifics aren't for sure at the moment because, well, this is a long-term project. So yeah, we're getting questions about how to stay updated on the Cheers project and whether there's a portal for members of the public to make comments on it. Does that at all exist?
Yes, and there's always more, I think, work that can be done.
Mhm.
We do have a project website. I think I can type it into the chat. Do I have that?
You
But it's
should, yeah, you should
it's
be able to.
it's www.clevelandmetroparks.com/cheers is kind of the shortcut. And
Mm,
of course, it represents all of the 6 partners. We just are hosting it on our website for ease of, yeah, that's perfect. You know, for ease of updates. There's a comment form there that comes to my desk.
perfect.
And we try to put updates there whenever if we're hosting an engagement event. But
Yeah,
also please reach out. You know, if your community is having an event and you would like us to share and have a conversation about Cheers, Linda and I go on the road all the time, right, Linda?
Yep. And please also feel free to reach out to either one of us by email.
Yes.
that kind of ties into my question, like some other questions that I had that were a bit more technical, but I suppose I can sum them up by just merely asking, are like these reports made by the consultants about the ecosystem benefits and like the design updates, are they available on that website for just regular people to access?
The website has kind of a library of
Yeah,
past studies. We haven't posted all the super technical studies or those assessments yet, but we're
yeah,
happy to share those as you know, as desired. We're coming up on kind of a design milestone where we're going to have 30% schematic design of the overall in-water structures, which are pretty technical documents, not a lot of
sure.
graphics, but those are something, you know, that we can share out if folks are interested, but I don't know that we'll post them on the website. But that graphic that shows how the implementation would occur over the 20 years is on the website and some other information.
That might be useful for just, I don't know, regular people to show, but yeah, I wouldn't assume your average Joe would want to like look at the technical specs of this project. Yeah, I'm just speaking for myself, I guess. I had a question on the community development strategies. Specifically, I was wondering if either you or Linda could uh, further explain how these community development corporations are planning on mitigating the displacement and rising costs associated with living around this area, like gentrification, stuff like that.
I'll start and feel free to jump in, Kelly. That is something that we've been talking about a lot with the city. We've also looked to other cities to hear about their experience and what was successful for them and what wasn't. So those strategies, I think, are still being developed.
And that's a great start. And we are fortunate that, you know, we don't have kind of shovels in the ground right now. So we do have some time to lay that, you know, the preparations. But the City of Cleveland's planning department is really taking those elements into consideration and looking at, you know, there's a lot of excitement that the residents of St. Clair Superior, of Glenville, they really should feel as if they live in a lakefront community. They do live in a lakefront community, and you know, to celebrate that fact, community development corporations, particularly St. Clair Superior and Famicos, and the associated elected officials with Councilman Hairston and Councilwoman House Jones have been very active and, really caring for their constituents to help the current residents realize the benefits, but not the negative impacts.
See, okay.
So.
Yeah, well, certainly it's great to hear that like the collaborative is reaching out to other cities, trying to learn from example on how this sort of revitalization development impacts the actual people and their lives that live around these projects. Like I myself have seen like demographic changes in like revitalized communities in like the urban parts of Cleveland, and how like people are pretty much like displaced by rising rents and stuff. But yeah, certainly something that just needs to be addressed with any sort of project like this. But yeah, it's definitely good to hear that those conversations are ongoing with Cheers. Yeah, so let's just these questions. Okay. Somebody was wondering if there's any way to volunteer to help Cheers at all. I think other than public comments, I wonder if there might be tree plantings one day or anything like that at the project site.
That's a great question, and we really appreciate that. Right now, probably I think speaking for Cleveland Metroparks, we have a volunteer program that can be accessed through our website, and we have reached out to our pool of existing volunteers for things like we had a floating wetland demonstration planting earlier this fall, and so we were able to put the call out to existing volunteers, and we did let folks who have signed up to receive Cheers emails. We let those folks know. So we did have a couple of constituents participate in that project. And then also with the walk shops that we hold periodically, volunteers have helped us with that, as well as other kind of stakeholder organizations like Kirtland Bird Club has been like a great grassroots partner. Again, Bell, Black Environmental Leaders, have been a super strong partner. So we're always looking to build relationships, whether it's individuals or organizations. Our stakeholder group, I think as Linda mentioned, has about 50 different organizations represented. So if you're part of an organization that would like to be included in those meetings that happen quarterly, you can let us know either by emailing or the form that's online on the project website.
Yeah, that's a great plug. Yeah, I know how much the environmental field relies on volunteer work. Like I myself have been involved in tree plantings, and I do have to say it's really fun and rewarding work. That's great. That's great to hear. I do hope one day that like residents, people of the community, they can like get out and like actually help make this happen. And it's great to hear that like their voices are being included in this project. I did have, just to segue to something else, I did have a question about climate change and whether you, Kelly or Linda, know of the ways that climate adaptation is being incorporated into the design of the Cheers project.
I'm happy to jump in with a few points, and Linda, we can kind of
Please.
tag team it. But it's interesting. A lot of our funding is from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation's National Coastal Resilience Fund, and the issues in the Great Lakes are so much different than they face on the coasts. And the issue that the Great Lakes have dealt with for many years are the fluctuating water levels. The high and low water levels. Linda, you're probably more familiar with the exact criteria than I am, but as many as 5 feet of water difference, water level difference. And so the kind of this self-selection in some of the planting areas for those high and low variations is baked into the design and really considered that it is a dynamic system. And then I think as we see the more intense storms, finding that sweet spot to design that outer breakwater, even that we aren't designing it that 100% of the storms aren't going to breach it, but finding that area that it still provides the key coastline protection and keeps the cove intact.
And I'll just add, what we see is from, more storm activity, that the amount of material that moves into the Cuyahoga River that needs to be dredged out, it's not consistent. So you could get a big storm and get lots of material that needs to be dredged out very quickly, and so much so that ships can have trouble carrying loads to capacity of their ships. So it's all the more reason this is important piece of this cheers, and being able to have capacity to manage those inconsistencies in the amount of material that drops into the river.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't have an engineering background, but like I do know the directional trend of like increasing storms, well, like the intensity of storms, the frequency of them, and also of decreasing ice cover on the Great Lakes in winter. That means more erosion on our coastline. I know for one like for one example, near Mentor Marsh, that reserve right on the lakefront owned by the city of Mentor, there's a substantial amount of erosion taking place there, like 10, 15 feet a year. So yeah, it's reassuring to hear that this project is taking into account these changes coming up, and that it's getting ready for them. Yeah, I do wonder how erosion will be managed on this, like in this project. I mean, I know that rates of erosion are increasing all over the place, and yeah, I do hope that is managed well at Cheers.
And that's one of the reasons that we need to start with the outer breakwater.
Yeah.
Protect the inner pieces that we're building, and
yeah,
allows us not to over engineer the shoreline.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. There was actually a question about the East 55th and the inner city yacht clubs. The person was wondering if the Cheers project will at all like amend the design of the yacht clubs, anything like that.
So East 55th Marina is operated by Cleveland Metroparks, and people lease the dock space. The docks there won't be impacted by the project. And then Inner City Yacht Club is a fantastic private yacht club. It's one of the first Black-led yacht clubs in the country, and we work and coordinate with IYC, as they're known, as a key stakeholder. They have a separate kind of sublease from Cleveland Metroparks that they're able to kind of arrange their docks, to best suit their needs. So we don't anticipate any changes to our relationship with Inner City Yacht Club, and they may make changes to their dock layouts that best suit the operations of their club.
I see.
It's kind of convoluted, but yeah, generally stay the same, and improvements if the yacht club, chooses to do that.
Sure, yeah, they're there. Hi, yeah, we got something cool going on over here. That's cool. All right. All right. Some people were asking about Dunn Brook. I don't know where that empties into. Is Dunn Brook at all relevant to this project?
Definitely. We've looked at some of the, both existing and historic waterways. And Linda, I don't know, since it flows through the nature preserve, if you want to speak to that, but I can show kind of with my cursor, it's really just right off the screen. Dunn Brook crosses under I-90 and is in a culvert that kind of travels through. Cleveland Lakefront Nature Preserve.
Oh, really? I didn't know
We
that.
it outlets kind of on this north end, and so
Wow.
the Domebrook Watershed Partners led a study a few years ago. It's always interesting to see if we can explore and have the ability to daylight streams that are in a pipe, and
Yeah.
obviously that's kind of a preferred solution. But then the challenge to the Domebrook in this area is that it is at such depth for the water flow,
Yeah.
and then with the existing land that's been built up. Linda, I don't know if you want to add to that. I'm trying to just give general
Yeah, no, I'll
comments
just
about
that.
Domebrook.
Yeah, we had discussions previously about whether it's possible. I always say, I suppose anything's possible with enough money, but you know, we are conscious of the material that was placed on top of that and around that pipe. So the plan is not to daylight it through the nature preserve. And as we looked into it, it was pretty difficult to, could we divert some of it and create habitat to the west of, yeah, in that corner.
Yeah.
There's complex conversations around what could be done, and I don't think there was anything conclusive from that at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, it's no surprise to me. I'm the CRWP. They're involved with the Dugway Brook daylighting project, and like I don't think a press release at all was sent out yet, but it's looking like that it's just not going to be feasible to daylight the stream. There's just the soil is contaminated. There's too many water and electric and gas pipes. It would just cost too much. So yeah, certainly there are environmental community benefits with daylighting streams. Just that when you have so much stuff built on top of it already, and enough time has gone by, the funding is just probably not there. But yeah, I mean, at the very least, there's going to be improvement with this project. You know, take the wins where you can get them, I guess. Yeah, and I'd say this is a win. I'd say this is a solid win for Cleveland.
Great.
Yeah,
well,
it's really, I mean, it has the ability to be, you know, a game changer for the east side. There's nothing like this currently available.
Really, I mean, yeah, like that's why I was so excited to like talk about this with you two. Like I remember hearing about Cheers like last fall when I started at AmeriCorps. I'm like, whoa, that's cool. I like our lake. Now I got my opinions about the airport, like and how it's taking up our beautiful coastline, and they're building a golf course. I don't know about that. Like,
I'm not sure about that.
That might have been on one of the past, like on that vision plan from 2004, but that I don't know that got any traction.
Okay.
The airport's a whole nother complicated discussion.
Yeah, I know.
But yes, a good example of the way we used to treat our lakefront was just, you know, totally different. It evolved as transportation, there was industry, and I think now we're really ready to embrace a natural shoreline again, which is an exciting, you know, place to be.
Yeah, and that was a really like interesting plug you gave, Linda, about the Irish Bend project. I personally have been following it closely, and I've enjoyed seeing the progress of it, especially now that like shovels are down and it's finally getting somewhere.
Yeah, I think we've removed over 70,000 cubic yards of material in the months since we started, just taking weight off that hillside that was placed there in the 60s by the Army Corps, and you know, helping to destabilize that hillside. There's a weak clay layer that, so some of it is, you know, not man-made, but then we made it worse by making it heavier, and so it's been just balancing there, and so it feels really great to see that project moving forward.
Yeah, I'll certainly I'll be keeping a close eye on it. Yeah, so we don't really have any other questions. So are you two ready to wrap up unless you have something else to add?
Just appreciate the time to chat with everyone and encourage people to either email us directly or go to the website. We definitely want the benefits and the input from the adjacent residents, but we also realize this is a regional project and we want, a lakefront that everyone can access and utilize. So thanks for the support.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, Kelly and Linda, thank you so much for coming out and being a part of our webinar series. To the attendees that are left, thank you for attending and contributing to our discussion. And look out for our other webinar series episodes, which we'll be promoting through our social media and newsletter. All right, well, have a nice day, everyone. Thank you, Kelly and Linda. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks.